Today was supposed to be the day President-elect Trump held a news conference to spell out what role, if any, he would play in the future of his business empire. He's since postponed talking to the press about it, at least until January. Instead, today he tweeted with a pushback against all the speculation about potential conflicts of interest. He wrote, quote, "The media tries so hard to make my move to the White House, as it pertains to my business, so complex, when actually it isn't." But there's also this from one of his top aides, Kellyanne Conway. She told MSNBC this morning that there was still work to be done.
Getting this right before you announce it is what's important. That's what I've been told by the legal experts and the other protocol experts, to make sure that the structure that's put in place shows the complete separation so that Donald Trump himself, as the President of the United States, Steve, can focus 100% on being the President of the United States. It's going to take a little bit longer.
Meanwhile, there's new pressure today from a group of Senate Democrats who unveiled a bill that would require Mr. Trump to divest from his businesses and put his assets in a blind trust. Here now to unpack those possible conflicts of interest are Marilyn Gewax. She's senior business editor for NPR. And Richard Painter. He's a professor at the University of Minnesota Law School, and he was a White House ethics advisor for President George W. Bush. And we welcome both of you to the program. Marilyn Gewax, let me start with you. What do we know about why this announcement is being postponed?
We know very little other than what he tweets, but one can speculate. He had said several weeks ago that he would have this press conference today on the 15th. And on Monday, he said, nah, never mind, I'm not really going to do that. So people are speculating that some think he wanted to wait until after the Electoral College votes. Others say the business is just so complicated that it's going to take more legal work to figure out how to pull him out of it. And others just say that this is just kind of a general smokescreen, that you could say you're going to do this, you'd stall for 2 weeks, then he says he's going to do it, but now he's going to stall longer. And by the time he does get to this topic, it'll be January and we'll be focused on the inauguration and it will seem smaller.
Well, Richard Painter, as we just reported, Mr. Trump tweeted today, you know, it's not complex. On the other hand, we just heard Kellyanne Conway. We've heard some of his other advisors say, well, there is more work to be done here to sort it all out.
Well, it isn't that complex to sell businesses, particularly if you have the advice of some of the best lawyers and investment bankers in New York. They buy and sell businesses all the time. He could have a public offering. He could find a private equity firm, sell it to a private equity firm. There are a number of different options. I don't think it's that complex, but it does need to be done correctly. But I wish that he would assure us at this point that he is going to sell off his business interests. And in particular, he needs to be in compliance with the Constitution and the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution, which prohibits payoffs from foreign governments to United States government officials. They simply cannot receive payments from foreign governments. So the businesses that are doing business with foreign governments, he can't own them.
So, Marilyn Gewax, is there agreement among ethics experts, and I know, Professor Painter is one of them, is there agreement about what Donald Trump needs to do?
I think that there really is broad agreement. I can't think of anybody really who would say, no, it's a great idea to keep owning hotels a couple of blocks from the White House and having people feel pressured to stay at your hotel when, I mean, it just is, it's pretty much second grade stuff to see that there could be all sorts of conflicts of interest. He's going to be shaping foreign policy, and he has businesses in something like 20 countries. He literally has some position in hundreds of companies over all of these different parts of the world. It would be impossible to separate out when is someone trying to win his favor or curry favor by boosting his business and when aren't they. That's really pretty obvious that you need to have a big, very high wall. If you're going to build a wall, that's the one you want to build between your businesses and your job as president.
Well, we don't know what he's going to do for sure, but Richard Painter, one of the things he said is that he wants his sons, or suggested that he wants his sons to take over the business. Would that provide a measure of separation?
Well, no, particularly if he's going to still own the businesses. And in order to give them to his sons, he'd have to pay the gift tax. I don't think he likes paying taxes. So if he just has his sons manage the businesses, that's not going to solve any of these problems. If the businesses are taking money in from foreign governments, he's going to be in violation of the Constitution on January 20 if he owns the businesses.
Is there a precedent, Richard Painter, for a president? And we know we don't typically have billionaires assuming the office of the presidency, but is there any precedent? What is the precedent for someone coming into office and figuring out some way to keep his family involved?
Well, we've had family members of the president involved. Usually, of course, it's the spouse. But the involvement is informal in giving advice to the president about how to do his job. But it's running a business on the side and trying to profit from the presidency. That's what's inappropriate. And I do not think we can have family members who are both attending official meetings and then, on the other hand, running a business.
And this week, Marilyn G. Wax, we've seen the children just yesterday in that meeting with technology executives. Both of his sons were there, his daughter Ivanka, her husband Jared Kushner. Mr. Trump has talked about bringing Ivanka and Jared Kushner into the administration. What's the precedent there? I mean, everybody refers back to John Kennedy and his brother Bobby as Attorney General, but that was back in the 1960s.
Right. And there are rules that are supposed to, ethics that have grown up in the post-Watergate era since 1978, where you really were trying to address these kinds of problems of nepotism and conflicts of interest, where Congress did spell it out. It's pretty clear what the will of the founding fathers was. They didn't want you to take money from foreign governments, and they didn't want people to have conflicts of interest. When you're the president, you should be focused on doing only what is right for all Americans, not for your family business. But what we've seen this week is really an aggressive pushback to that. I mean, rather than have this press conference and talk about solving conflicts of interest, he had a meeting with a bunch of tech executives. Right. There were 25 people at the table, and 4 of them were Trump's. I mean, that's pretty aggressive on his part.
That's right, and his daughter Ivanka's husband. But Richard Painter, if there is some arrangement, say wherein Ivanka Trump is involved in a daughter, obviously not the First Lady, that would be Mrs. Trump, but if she were there as in a semi-official role as the daughter of the president, if Jared Kushner is involved, as it's been suggested, maybe in advising on national security, the Middle East, and they're not paid, could an arrangement like that work?
Well, I think you probably have to work out with Congress, because the anti-nepotism statute, which came in after the Bobby Kennedy appointment, is quite clear about not allowing someone to appoint relative to a position in the government. And I don't think the fact that it's not a paid position would affect that. And I think that he could work something out with Congress, maybe if he wants to maybe disclose his tax returns and do some of the other things that we care about. I would not have an objection to Jared Kushner. I mean, he or other family members have been given a position. They're very talented people, and I think in some ways more talented than some of the people he's brought in. But I think you have to work it out with Congress. The statute is really quite clear on nepotism.
And yet the First Lady, Marilyn G. Wax, typically does play some role. The modern First Lady takes on a cause. Hillary Clinton, it was health care
But think about the roles that they took on. I mean, in Mrs. Clinton's case, she was pushing a health care agenda. With Mrs. Obama, it was about children and obesity and nutrition. But what if if Mrs. Obama had come out with a new line of jewelry and she started selling Obama wear and was holding up her, her new bracelets, that would have seemed peculiar. I mean, I think people would have been very shocked to see, a little Obama fragrance, or, I mean,
But we don't know that that's going to happen. So.
But I mean, it didn't happen while they were in office. But we do know that the Trumps plan to continue, it appears, to sell all sorts of products.
We will see. Marilyn G. Wax, Richard Painter, thank you both.
Thank you very much.